Hey Restoration Church, my name is Pastor Colin, and today we're going to be reading out of Mark 8 as we are on our 8th day of the fasting and prayer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up on the very first verse. Let's read together. It says this: "During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said, 'I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way because some of them have come a long distance.' His disciples answered, 'But where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them?' 'How many loaves do you have?' Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground. When he had taken the 7 loaves, given thanks, and broke them to the people, and they did so. They had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them also and told his disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. After the disciples picked up 7 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over, about 4,000 were present. After he had sent them away, he had got into the boat with his disciples and went to the region of Dalmanutha." What we're going to be talking about this morning is the idea of denying our flesh and leaning more into Jesus. We read more in chapter 8 about a story of a blind man who his friends brought to Jesus, and Jesus had spit on his face to wash the blindness. And so as he's rubbing it clean, the blind man began to continue to have faith. But he opened his eyes, and all he saw was trees. And so Jesus again cleaned his eyes, and what we see is the blind man was able to see again. And what's cool about this is we see that Jesus responds to this saying, don't even go back to the village. Don't go back to where you came from. And so how we tie all of this in, and what we're going to be really diving into today, is the idea of denying our flesh and relying solely on Jesus. Because Jesus told the blind man not to return home, that was him saying, don't go back to what you believed in. If you remember from the story that I read just a few moments ago, we learned that the disciples had lots of doubt in Jesus. They began to doubt, where are we going to get this bread from? How are we going to feed these people? And Jesus says, wait, haven't you learned from this before? Haven't you seen the miracles that come from it? And we see right before in verse 19, he replies, how many baskets were left over from the 5,000 that I fed? From when he fed the 5,000? He said, 12. And he said, well, how much is left over from the 4,000? And they said, 7. And he goes, don't you know this by now? Don't you know how good God is? And to stop relying on what's around you, but to rely solely on him? And so Jesus, what he teaches in this moment is the idea that we have to rely solely on God. The disciples are men too, and so they fell to their defaults. They returned back to what they knew. And so what we see from these disciples is that they're just like us. They're just ordinary people that lost and was confused, and Jesus always brought them back to him. And that's what we have to do when it comes to our flesh. We have to rely and go back to the source. We don't go back home to what we're used to and what we're safe with, but we have to stretch ourselves. In this 8-day fast, it's already been a week, and I know that the ability to stretch yourself, there's 8 days of it, right? And so we have to continue to press in and continue to trust Jesus. So I ask you this morning, where are you? Are you at the place where you need to be fed by Jesus, where your flesh needs to be denied constantly? Or is your flesh fallen before the cross? Have you placed it there? Have you surrendered it to Jesus? Or are you fighting with it? Are you fighting with doubt? Maybe you've forgotten how good God is. Maybe you've forgotten the miracles that he's done in your life, the place that he's brought you through, and the victories that he has for you. Well, this morning, we learn very clearly what the scriptures say and how good God is, and that because he's done it before, he can do it again. Mark 8 ends with these verses 34 to 36. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul?" What are you willing to do to continue to put your faith in God? If you call yourself a follower of faith, then I want to encourage you to continue to lean in and trust that because he's done it before, he can do it again. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for what you have for us. Thank you that we can be brought through this fast knowing and relying completely on you. Jesus, we know when it's tough that the last thing we need to do is return home to the place where we're used to and where we're comfortable with. But God, you're challenging us to go further. So God, thank you. Thank you for the opportunities that you have in this, and that we would just continue to love you and to pour into you and to lean into what you have for us, Jesus. We thank you so much. We love you. Amen.